Eryka.
Hey, Sandra, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm good. I'm so glad to have you on my show.
Yes, I appreciate the invitation. Definitely was excited to come and chat a little bit.
Yeah, and it's my Engineer Her Path show that's streamed live on LinkedIn, and I also do podcast and YouTube so people can watch it later. And I love that you're on here because you're actually a woman in STEM, which is my target audience. And a lot of my people on LinkedIn are fellow women in STEM. So it's always exciting when I can actually get a woman on STEM on my show because
I love it.
not the
I
easiest to
love it.
get.
I love it. And I love the fact that you've created something special just for women in STEM and to have, conversations we need to be having and kind of explore topics. So I'm definitely grateful. And I want to congratulate you, of course, for creating this platform and giving us women in STEM a voice. So.
Yeah. So I'm going to start off with talking about why I picked you. I always talk about why I picked each guest
Okay.
to be on my show. And I'm going to tell everyone a story. So, Erica and I were kind of just virtual LinkedIn friends, right?
Yeah,
And we knew each other
yeah.
on LinkedIn, and we did have a video chat. I can't remember who initiated meeting over video, but we had this great video chat. I can't remember. It probably lasted over an hour. It just felt like it was so easy to talk to each other. And not that I thought it was the end of it, but we had our chat, and
Yeah.
then I was advertising that I was speaking at the SWE National Conference
Yeah.
B24, and then you, of all people, didn't even say you're going to come. We talked about we were going to try to connect up and meet, but I knew you're
Right.
recruiting, and
Yeah.
also anyone who's ever recruited at a really big job fair knows that's like a full-time job. It's really hard to get away. It's hard to come to the talks. It's hard to commit to anything when you are recruiting at a booth with a bunch of other people on behalf of your
Yeah.
company, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I was not expecting to really see you. I was like, if it matches up, we were trying to meet up and it wasn't really working out because you have, commitments. I had commitments also, right? And then
Yeah.
you showed up at the end of my talk. I was so shocked. I was so surprised because that wasn't really prearranged. We didn't really
Yeah.
agree upon it. And people are well meaning, right? People will say stuff like, "Oh, I'm going to come to your talk," right? And I know
Yeah.
they mean well, but I also will tell people, no, you go do what you have to do. Whatever
Hmm.
you need to do in the conference, whether it's recruiting or you're with a group of people at your company or there's another talk you'd rather go to. So I was super impressed, flattered, felt so much gratitude for that because, like I said, it wasn't planned, it wasn't expected. Like, you don't owe me anything. We're kind of just really just video chat strangers.
Right. Just kind of getting acquainted. Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
so I was super
Get
impressed
acquainted.
by that. And then, yeah, you looked, and you seemed exactly like when we're talking. Because I will say sometimes when you meet people in person that you met
Hmm.
on video or LinkedIn, they're not always exactly the same. And I was really impressed. You're exactly like the way you appear and seem online and on video.
Yeah.
And then we
Yeah.
just talked for hours and we went to dinner and it was just, wow. And so I'm just so impressed by that. Really connected. And I was like, oh, I got to have you on my show too. And feel like I made a new friend from that.
Yes, I mean, it was such a pleasure. Like, I had been traveling the week prior. I was doing some
Yeah.
international business travel, and then yeah, I knew the Chicago conference was coming up, and so I made sure I kind of got the agenda out. I knew what I had to go to, and I'm looking. I was like, okay, where's Sandra's talk? Where's Sandra's talk? And I was like, okay, and I saw that your talk was right after I had the women, I guess the women of color luncheon, and
Yeah.
I definitely wanted to come to yours as well as participate with the luncheon, and I was able to do both. And so I was like, yeah, let me go and surprise her. And I made sure I got a little footage of you talking, and it
Yeah.
was, I mean,
That's
the crowd, the women were so engaged as you're just kind of talking about finances and why that's so important. And just kind of helping to connect the dots for
Yeah.
the women that were in the session. So it was so exciting to see you up there kind of in your element.
Oh, but thank you for being so supportive because, like I said,
Listen.
people can say stuff and they mean
Right.
well, but to
Yeah.
actually come through, and like I said, I didn't expect that or anticipate that at all. It's such a
Yeah.
welcome surprise because, like I said, well, I came and I didn't really have like a whole company or I didn't
Hmm.
have a big cadre of people that I went to the conference with. I was pretty much like a lone ranger. It wasn't, not that I didn't talk to people and make friends, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like, you hang out with someone for a little bit and then you meet someone else. But
Yeah. Hang out with
um,
someone. Yeah.
it's a different experience to like go to the conference and you don't have like a whole group of supportive people or people, you would see it at other talks. All the people from a certain company would show
Yeah.
up dressed a certain way and supporting the speaker. But, I couldn't really count on that and I didn't have that. But it's like, that's what's so cool about LinkedIn and making real connections. And like I said, that's like the real deal. And I'm so grateful for that. And it just shows how, authentic you are and how supportive you are of other women. So
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I appreciate that because I know when I said like, "Hey, Sandra, like, I'm gonna like let's make sure we connect." Like, I really meant that because I love the fact, we do so much, and I'm so grateful for online and how we have the ability to, meet people across the world, and some people that we may have would have never gotten the opportunity to meet. The internet allows us to do that, but there's nothing like having that face to face
yeah.
connection. And I'm one of those people that love, I love the face to face. Like, I love the face to face connection, even though I'm considered, I consider myself an introvert. I love people, right? I love people.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, and I like meaningful connections, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes if I can just connect with one person and and be able to create like a deep connection, like that's what really feeds me. And so
Ooh, me
I
too.
know, yeah, I know our conversation, we had really good conversation. It was like
Yeah.
we had known each other.
And I kept thinking, because remember I kept asking him, like, don't you have to meet other people at your company or hang out with them? And you're just kind of like, no, I don't have
No,
to.
like we had our set times for things, right? But when I go to things like that, I try to make sure, that I also explore and get an opportunity to meet other people, right? Because I can always meet the individuals within the organization that I'm in, but sometimes it's good to kind of venture out and build your network. I think that's really important. Building your network outside of your organization as well with people that's actually in industry that you can too just bounce ideas off of and kind of get insights and things of that nature. So for me, that's important as well. Not just being connected within your organization, but you got
Yeah.
to connect outside of your organization as well. And meet people that don't look like you. Meet people that are not even in the same major or field as you are. And then just, meet people that have different passions. Like you have this real passion for finance and wealth creation and helping, female engineers and women in STEM like really build out their portfolios and think about the importance of having a resource like money. That's important, right? So just meeting people with different passions from what you have. So I think that's just important.
Oh, I love that because there are things that are different about us. Like we work in totally different industries, but we're both women in
Yeah.
STEM over 20
Yeah.
years. And then the other thing I loved about you is that you have this entrepreneurial side too. But I'll let
Mhm.
you introduce yourself. Go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah, so I'm Eryka T. Wellborn. I'm the creator of the Unforgettable Engineer brand as well as the up and coming community. I've also been in the energy sector for the past 24 years as a mechanical engineer. I work for ExxonMobil, and I just have a passion for supporting women in STEM, female engineers who are looking to go from invisibility to influence, but doing it in such a framework that really honors her feminine design and allows her to really reconnect with her feminine values. And so that's something that I love to do. I've been supporting women, not just women in STEM, but high achieving women for the past several years. I've had an opportunity to connect and mentor with women and speak with them in person in Dubai, and I've been to New Delhi, and I've been into London and to Silicon Valley. And so it's just something that I'm passionate about. It's just really helping women make that transition from being invisible to really being a woman of influence and impact in the industry, whatever the industry is that she's in, but particularly for technical women in male dominated industries where it's easy for her to be outnumbered and to feel like, she really doesn't fit in.
Yeah.
So that's who I am. I'm a mother, I'm a wife. My husband and I actually got married in January. And so my husband and I have a blended family of like 5 kids. And so it's interesting, just, the blending that we've been doing this year, as well as, all of the other things that I got going on. And so I just, I love life. I love life. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's what I love about you, that energy, and you're doing so many different things and you're passionate about so much. But how did you get into that? What drove you to create this business?
Oh, so it's an interesting story. And it's so let me just be really
Yeah.
authentic about it. So in 2019, I had a really defining moment in my life, and that's when I basically started my life over at 40. And so I was a single mom of 3 children that I was just kind of carrying the load for all 3 kids by myself. I was really dealing with the aftermath of a divorce and trying to, of course, get my finances on track. When you go through a divorce, there's a lot that happens there. And, you may have a really nice portfolio, and when you come out of that, you may have half of the portfolio. Um, but just trying to get those things back on track while still having the demanding career, still leading in church and in the community, and still supporting my girlfriends with the big dreams and businesses that they had. And I just found myself depleted. It looks like I had lost myself. I was tired, tired physically, emotionally, spiritually. It was like I had nothing left. And I was just kind of buried under the weight of responsibility. There was the people pleasing that was involved in that, but it was also the element of just trying to survive. And when I started kind of just connecting the dots back to like, why is this? It really kind of went back to I had learned at a very early age. Life had taught me at a very early age to be invisible, to carry an invisible weight, to be small, because that was the way that I stayed safe. Because I dealt with childhood abuse, and there's an invisible weight that goes along with that. And ultimately, I was able to connect, like, why was I the way that I was based on, what I kind of had went through through my childhood. And I decided, like, hey, it's time for me to regain my voice. And intentionally for an entire year, I just spent time nurturing myself. And I had never did that before, Sandra. And so that looked like me reconnecting with my femininity and my feminine values. It looked like me just really getting and focusing in on my soul care. So doing my heart work and the deep inner work, but also, understanding what it was that I needed, having the therapy, getting out in nature. That was one of the things that I just started craving that. I had never did that before, but I started hiking and just like reconnecting with nature. And I started dancing and doing some of the things that I love to do. And so I started with belly dancing. I had never did that before either, but it gave me an opportunity to get around other women and just kind of be playful and laugh and have fun. But what it ultimately did, it helped me regain my voice. but it
Yes.
also just kind of opened up this new path for me, and I found this purpose. And it was really connected to me knowing that there were other women out there that felt invisible, and they were, they were behind the scenes, and they needed that support with helping to just step into the spotlight. And I understood in that moment that voice was so much more than just speaking out and speaking up. It was really, voice for me was like my presence. It was my footprint, my imprint, my brilliance. It was like the mark that I would leave on the world. And so that journey, just kind of brought me to that place, and it illuminated this path. And I knew that I needed to talk with and support women in engineering and female engineers, because I finally fell back in love with engineering. Because for many years I didn't even identify, get this, I didn't even identify as an engineer, because of just the experience that I had, the experiences that I had early on in my career. It kind of made me detach from that. And so once I fell back in love with engineering, it was like, oh my goodness, these are the people that I'm called to serve, and the ones that I'm called to help and really make an impact and help them understand, like, it's okay for you to take up space. Like, we got to take up space, right? And so I love to say that in any place that a female is engineer is called to, wherever she decides, where she just, when she makes a decision like, hey, this is the place that I'm called to, that's where she belongs. And so that really just kind of started me with tapping into this unforgettable engineer. Like, the brand just came out of just that whole journey that I walked through. And I just started getting, I just started getting these downloads and these ideas, and I started writing and putting stuff down, and, working with individuals to kind of help me, shape out what this brand is and what's the messaging around it. And so we finally have gotten, our own little footprint in the world. So we have our private community that, it's off of social media, is on a totally separate platform that I've been sewing into that community. Like, I've been uploading trainings, we got videos, we got, things that we're going to be doing in terms of, like monthly topics that we're going to be covering, but it's all based on that framework that allows a woman to use what she's already been designed with to really increase her influence in industry.
That's
Yeah.
so beautiful that out of your journey and your pain and transformation, something
Yeah.
beautiful can come out of it. And that's why sometimes I think people's most ideal client, the people they feel called to serve, are a previous version of themselves, right? They're like, if
Yep.
only I knew some of these things, or if
Yep.
only someone helped me out, and it could have smoothed the path, or guided the way. But what makes you think, or what do you think is the reason why women get lost these days and feel invisible? Not just you.
Yeah. 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 So for me, it was trauma, and it was very complex trauma that hadn't been resolved, right? For others, it can be a number of things, but I often like to go back to, like, the root and the origin of things. And sometimes the indicators come through, like, how did you grow up? What were the messages that you got? Like, statistics say, or even studies say, by the age of 7, like, our mindset and our conditioning is set into place, and it's based on the things that we see. It's based on the things that we're exposed to, the people that are in our environment. And so a lot of times I love to go back, and let's really go back to the origin, and, like, where you started, and let's kind of just take a look at that. Think about it and take a look at that. What are the things that, if you look at, and, you look at things today that you may have thought was normal, that actually wasn't normal. And so that's a big part of it. And then we go into environments that we may not have been fully prepared to enter into, because that was one of the things that was a struggle for me, going from an environment of, being extremely confident, I went to a historically Black college and university. And so typically, everybody at that university kind of looked like me to go into a corporate America where I'm in this industry and there's not many people that look like me. And so, the support wasn't necessarily there. That's another reason. So it can be just a myriad of reasons, but I think it's important for each individual woman to kind of identify, what's been that frustration and that challenge for you, and what can you do to really overcome that and hit reset.
Mm. No, that's really, really good. Yeah, I think they'll lose themselves in so many other things, right? Whether it's family or
Yeah.
relationships or career. And it's
Hmm.
interesting. And it's kind of that waking up and realizing, like, oh, I'm still here.
I'm I'm still here.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
who am I? Yeah, yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you talked about falling in love back with engineering?
I guess the part of the story that I really didn't talk about um, was making that transition, going from having quite a bit of success in college, uh really high GPA, was one of the individuals that led out the College of Engineering during our commencement service. And so I had all of this energy, all of this confidence, and then I go into corporate America and I realized I really wasn't prepared. And meaning, like, college didn't prepare me for the experience, the things, the unwritten rules. I wasn't prepared.
Yes.
I
Corporate
wasn't prepared.
America is very different from
Yeah.
school.
Yeah,
Yes.
I wasn't prepared to be in an environment where there were people that, that chose not to support. And there was not a system in place that would naturally, support me as a woman of color, going into those spaces. And so ultimately, Sandra, for the first 5 years, I felt miserably. And there was commentary and narratives that were attached to me, and ultimately there were biases. It was, I don't know why we hired her, like, she's not a good fit, like she's not going to be a good leader. It was all of these judgments, right? That, because I was experiencing that, it was like I started to believe this. And I had to make a mental shift that basically says, Eryka, you are the one who owns your career. And because a system is not in place today, then you also need to make sure that you hold your leadership accountable to support you in this journey. And, ultimately I went from, the quote unquote low performer, not a good fit, to being one of the most respected in my organization when I made that mental shift. And so when the company started laying off individuals, I was one of those who actually got a promotion and got relocated to an entirely different state that put my career on a totally different trajectory, in terms of, and in terms of opportunity. But one thing that I can say is I didn't necessarily deal with what I would call it workplace trauma. Some people call it workplace harm. And so, there's still that undercurrent there, and there's still that conditioning there. And so, the moment you start dealing with that, it makes things easier. So, if it's particularly, it can cause things like imposter syndrome, or you kind of being fearful to kind of speak up for yourself. But once you start dealing with those things, then it just kind of makes you more open to receiving. But also, just for me, it made me embrace engineering, where before I was tell you, every someone say, hey, tell me about yourself, like, oh, I'm this global leadership brand strategist and this international speaker, and I do blase blase, and then I would end it with, oh, and I'm an engineer, right? I didn't even see myself in that way. But in 2017, so the big shift came in 2017, where one of my really good girlfriends, who was a mechanical engineer who worked within the company as well, we met during we interned for the company did a summer intern with the company before we started full time some years back, and we ended up sharing an apartment together. Well, she passed away from a domestic violence incident, and it was like that was a moment for me where I kind of began to look at my life and look at the choices that I had made, and even looking at my experience with the company. And I made a decision that, hey, I'm going to choose something different. And so instead of my journey was strictly kind of like technical leadership, I made a decision to really go back to the technical side of engineering, where I hadn't spent much time prior, and I wanted to kind of dig deep, and kind of get some technical depth there. And, I did that. And that was kind of like me saying, life is short. You kind of got to embrace like what it is that you actually want. And that was a decision that I made. And I stayed there for like 3 or 4 years before I kind of shifted back to say, okay, I kind of got a taste of it. Let me kind of shift back. But it was in that era that I really, really kind of fell back in love with engineering. And that just kind of set the scene for, what I'm doing today.
Oh, I really love your whole message because how you talk about we can't change everything around us. You can't change the culture of a corporation. We can't
Mhm.
change how political work can be at times and honestly unfair, right? It's just unfair. And as even as we see things changing, it's changing so slowly, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I hear from a lot of people, especially young people sometimes, that they're just upset about how everything is not correct in the workplace. This person got a promotion and I didn't get this, or I didn't get this job. And this is unfair that this person hired their brother or whatever. But instead, you changed what you can control rather
Yeah.
than an entire corporation or everyone around you. And that's what I love because I really think that for women in STEM to survive, especially like as long as we have for
Yeah.
decades, it's the
Absolutely.
mental game almost more than anything
Oh
else.
my God. And
Yeah.
then it's the fact that my life isn't just centered around working for a company, right? I
Yeah.
what I understand is my impact goes far beyond just the company, right? If I'm called to an industry and to be an industry leader, I gotta get outside of a box, which
Yeah.
is why,
Yeah, you're not Exxon Mobil, and I'm not
yeah,
like
I'm
whatever Lockheed Martin, and
absolutely, right? So like there's the personal brand that's there. Actually, I had someone while I was at the Sweet conference. It was one of the managers at the company where I work, and she's like, "Oh, hey, how you been? What you kind of been up to? Are you still doing your stuff, right? Your thing?" And like my immediate response was, absolutely. Like my personal brand will forever be my personal brand, and that's my impact, into the industry, and how I'm supporting and giving into the industry. And so, it for me, it's just it goes beyond just working for a company. Like
yeah,
we're called to something so much greater, and we got to be aware that it doesn't start and end. When we walk through the threshold of the doors into
right.
someone else's organization, but there's something that you were created to do. And really what I'm doing is an extension of what I'm doing in the organization, and I get to kind of do it how I want to do it.
Yeah, your
I
own
kind of I
way.
make up my own rules. I kind of get to tell the whole truth, and not ashamed to tell the whole truth. So you can kind of go back and look at some of my posts, from the last year or two, and I'm telling quite a bit of truths, right? Um
You are. The one
and
today was good.
yeah, and folks were like, "Oh my God!" Like, and I see people at work all the time, and they was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like, I stalk your post, on LinkedIn, and like, you're like, I feel like I know you, like, because of what you post, on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, right? And so, for me, it's about telling the truth and just being authentic. So,
Yeah, when you're being authentic. Let's talk about that because you worked at a company for so long, right? And you could easily let that shape and define you because, ExxonMobil is a super well-known company, right? You can
yeah,
rest on that brand the rest of your
yeah.
life if you feel like it. When did you start kind of getting this idea where it's like, oh, I need a brand around me. I want to pour into me. I'm not just a company. I'm not just an engineer. And
Hmm.
why do you think it's important for even women in STEM that may be employees the rest of their life? There's nothing wrong with being an employee.
Hmm.
Why should they build their own personal brand?
Yeah, what's so interesting is, Sandra, it was probably within that first 5 years. So when I did that shift after the first 5 years of failing, that entrepreneurial, like there's something much bigger in life than just going to a job, was ignited. And so I've been doing some form of branding myself, since maybe 2000
You
and
figured it out early then.
7, 8. It's been a while, right? And it's evolved over time. Like I can go back and look in my files, and I can look at the different kind of websites that I had, and but what was interesting, the messaging pretty much always centered around women knowing your value, confidence, right? And it's just kind of evolved, and that target audience has just gotten tighter and tighter to now is a little bit more niche. But it's important for you to understand what you stand for, because you are a voice. Like I talked about earlier, you have an imprint, you have a footprint. There's something that you need to do to leave your mark on the world. And sometimes it's going to go beyond just working for a company, right? It's the essence, it's everything that you stand for. It's your value system. And so you are in the business of you, like you are a brand. I typically look at myself as a business, even working within the company, right? I'm still a business. There is the business of you. And so it's always important for you to lead with that, to lead with your personal brand, and just bring it all together. And that's what I do. If you go on my LinkedIn and you even just kind of read the bio, like I've lumped everything together, and it's centered around me. It's not centered around a company. It's not even centered around a business, but it's centered around who I am, my true essence, and the impact that I know I've been called to release into the world, and the people that I know I've been called to serve.
Wow. Wow. That's very powerful.
Mhm.
And you know what? It's so true because you probably experienced that hardship early in your career. It was almost the blessing in disguise because it helped you realize, like, I can't rely on a company.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
It helped me realize, like, hey, this is, this does not define you, right?
Right.
And I think it really kind of opened my eyes to, like, this working for this company is not your identity. Like you're so much more than that. You're so much
Yeah.
bigger than that, right? So it helped me identify that like really early. Because I know a lot of people that their life is just centered around their job, and that's like their identity. What happens when you lose that? What happens
I
when you
know.
retire? What happens when this company says, hey, I'm ready to separate from you? And if you've anchored your identity in that, it's going to be a hard day for you.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. No, it's so true. I kind of experienced that because I was at Lockheed Martin for so long. And of course,
Yeah.
I did so well and you don't question it and the years just fly by. And then, of course, a lot of my friends from college all worked there. We all started working at the same time. And then your colleagues are a lot of your friends. And then you work a lot. And then after work, you hang out with your work colleagues more. And then
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
back to work and it can kind of feel like it's the center of your life. It really can. You can let a company be your identity,
Yeah.
and that's what I love about your messaging too, because it's not about just building everything around like whatever a relationship or a company
Hmm.
or even
Hmm.
a job title, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, like, and to really get there and to really get that message, that's where it takes the inner work, and it takes the self-reflection, and it takes, turning the noise down around you, just to really kind of sit in it, and just, and really get a feel and an understanding, and then even like connecting the dots, like start looking at, what are some of the dreams that you have? Because my dreams that I've had has really helped to lead me to bridge me to where I am. Like there's been a recurring dream that I've had over the last 10 plus years. And it's so crazy. It's always me, and there's always like a drove of women. Like it's so many women, I can't count it. The number of them, they don't have faces, but it's always me leading them out of something that's very challenging. And so, once we were in a burning building that had, multiple flights of stairs and everybody hysterical, and I'm helping to lead, like, hey, just follow me. Another time we were walking over this bridge, and on each side, actually I won't even say it was a bridge because it didn't have any protection on either side, but on either side of the walkway it was a pit of fire, and I was calming the women down, and I was like, hey, like, I didn't know the way, but I'm like, just follow me, I'll get us out. Even the another time we were lost, it was like this, we were in this field and it was like this maze, right? And so people again were hysterical, like, how do I get out of this, right? So I found myself, even through the dreams were speaking to me like, hey, this is what you're called to do, right? So, when you're trying to figure out that brand, think back to what are some of those dreams that you had, right? What are some of those experiences? Maybe it was a recurring experience that came up for you. And what was the nuggets and the lessons from that? And, what was it that you walked away with? Like, what was that lesson that you walked away with that you're like, okay, like this is something that people need to hear. And so, there's work with just kind of understanding what is that brand and what's that messaging that that comes out of you, that goes far beyond just a job. Like life is so much more than just a job.
Oh man, I love that. Yeah, you have so much like vibrancy and energy, and I know people can feel it even across video. And
Mm,
it's real genuine what you're saying, and you do have all the trappings of the impressive life and a long career and all that, but it's just it's so much more than that. So
it's,
that's what's
it's
amazing.
so more.
And
It's
I wish
more.
more women could understand and know this, especially women in STEM, because, like I said, we can really define ourselves by our careers and our
Yeah,
titles and our salaries, and even
yeah.
like some relationship status, and all
Mhm,
those types of things, and really getting to the core of like who you are and how
mhm,
you show up. But how did you kind of shift into? Because I know part of your messaging is about femininity and showing up as
mhm,
you truly are, right? And
mhm.
how did you, I don't know, either learn or discover that?
Yeah, yeah. So that was a part of the journey that I personally had to go through, because I had found, like, remember I told you I felt like I had lost myself.
Hmm.
And I was so detached, you know, so detached from my body. Like it was almost like I was just a separate person. And so it was, this was the work that I did to start kind of reintegrating myself, and being able to listen to my intuition, and being able to be able to feel the emotions and feel, if I didn't feel safe, or if I felt tired. So it was very intentional. A lot of that work came from when I hired a love coach after going through the divorce. I hired a love coach, and the first thing that we actually worked on was really with me trying to rebuild trust. And that was trusting myself. That was a really big part of it, trusting myself again. And because I had a lot of messages came through my intuition that I didn't listen to, in regards to my past relationship. I kind of turned the volume down on that. And that's one of the big things when you're tapping into your femininity and your womanhood. It's like, hey, as a woman, you have this alarm system, you have this inner knowing. Like, this is what we have to cultivate. It's like this womanly wisdom that we have to
But you were
cultivate.
detached from it. That's
I
probably,
was detached,
yeah.
and I was choosing not to listen. And so a lot of my work started there. And as I began to just kind of, reconnect, I grew interested in, okay, so what is this thing, right? And it just kind of led me on a journey. And when you hear people talk about femininity or she's a badass or, goddess, they use all kind of language, but ultimately what it is really the activity that happens out of the right hemispherical side of your brain, and where your creativity is, where you're going to favor collaboration over competition, where you're going to be able to orchestrate and bring all of these things together rather than just being a linear thinker. It's all of the things that when you look at the industry that we're in, Sandra, and you're trying to increase your leadership and get to the top, these are all of the things, even connecting with your emotions, that you're told, like, hey, just leave
Yeah.
that stuff alone, like, just don't worry about that, right? And you have this success framework that's been designed by men and it's for men, but when women use that framework, she's typically frustrated by the time she gets to the top, or she's so cold and so stoic, and it's almost like she's acting or resembling a man,
Yeah.
rather than, embracing who she is. So, like, I want to embrace the fact that I'm a warm and I am a kind individual. And I love to connect with people on, on a deeper level. I love to, to be empathetic. I'm a very strong, active listener. So, like, when I'm engaging in conversation with you, it's nobody else that's, there's no other conversations that's actually going on. It's like, oh, I'm here, I'm present. And so, for me, it's getting outside of that success framework, that being in a technical industry, male dominated, has been what most women have had to actually, journey that track and that framework to, like, okay, is there another framework that makes sense for us, where we don't have to deny ourselves? We don't have to disconnect from our
Right.
femininity and from our intuition and from the fact that we want to collaborate and we want to bring people into community and we want to have emotions and we want to ask you how your children are doing and how's your family. Like, is there another way that we can look at this and build our leadership and still honor who we are? And so that was kind of what led me along that track. Is it's important for me, you're going from A to B. What's important for me is that journey in between. And that journey in between, as long as I'm getting the result, don't worry about the journey in between. Like, allow me to be me, right? Allow me to use all of the values that's innate to me as a woman. Not that men don't have these, but women have been encouraged to just disconnect from all of these feminine values, and these are the things that really make you great as a woman in industry. It really makes you great. Like, it's your superpower. And so
It
it's making
is.
you stay
It
connected
is.
to superpower, because we've been told that we can't be emotional and we can't do, we got, the only way that we can make it is we got to do it that way, right?
No,
So
I love that message
I
because
want to be a
I
rebel
just
and
feel,
choose
yeah,
to do
be
it.
yourself at work
Yeah,
and you truly are. You don't have to water it down or be more masculine to fit in, and it's just we already stand out, so why
yeah,
not?
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And if I want to wear, my heels to work with a cute dress and cute skirt, like, why not? Right? So,
Yeah.
it's, I don't have to do the code switching. And so I'm at the point in my career now where I'm not even interested in code switching. Like, if I gotta do all of that to please you, like, I'm just gonna be who I am at this point, and and continue to walk the path that I'm walking, right? If that means I don't have a desire to be the CEO of the company where I work for, right? That's never been my desire, and it's totally okay, right? So,
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, we're already at 45 minutes. I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I
yeah.
want you to let everyone know where they can find you and if you have anything to offer the audience.
Yeah, so absolutely. So the best place to find me, of course, is on LinkedIn. All of my branding is still my formal name. So it's Eryka T. Johnson, ERYKA T. Johnson. I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn. For 2025, we're gonna have quite a bit of things that's going on. Not only will I be celebrating my 1 year anniversary in January, but we're gonna have quite a bit of more live interactions through our YouTube channel. We're gonna be doing more podcasts, being on people individual podcasts to kind of get the message out about the Unforgettable Engineer community. And actually, you can go there, theunforgettablengineer.com, and join the wait list so that when we open up the community, you get that email that we're open, and we would love for you to come and just come into this sacred space, this safe space that I've created that's designed just for women that's in STEM, female engineers that really want to elevate and just really transition within their jobs, and honestly within their life, because we're gonna touch on those things around soul care. We're gonna touch on those things around your feminine value and really connecting into your femininity. So
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, this was the best conversation ever. I really enjoyed it.
I appreciate you so much, Sandra. Thank
You're
you for having
welcome.